Hello, I just finished Mick Fleetwood Play On, Now Then, and Fleetwood Mac. So he's got several books, and the one that I'd read before was called My Life and Adventures. So this is the second book from Mick Fleetwood that I've reviewed. And I looked online before I started this. I must be a glutton for punishment because originally I thought, well, why does he have two books about his experience in the band? And I didn't do much research, and I said, well, I'll just buy both of them. So it turns out probably a good decision because both of these books are books you're going to want to skim. They're not, well, I shouldn't say that authoritative, probably want to skim. So as a lot of you may or may not know, the original Fleetwood Mac started in the 60s and did not really produce hits the way that the 80s and late 70s, early 80s Fleetwood Mac did. So when people hear about the 60s Fleetwood Mac, a lot of times they don't even know what they're talking about, but that's Peter Green and more of a blues kind of a group, not a pop hit maker. So the original book, My Life and Adventures, I read from front to back for the most part, and I skimmed a lot of the 60s stuff after I got kind of bored with it. It was talking about go-go dancers and things in Britain in 60s, and I got about halfway through that section, which was about half the book. And this book follows almost exactly the same model as far as chapters go. You've got his upbringing and his background and a slight part about him learning drums and schooling. It's almost exactly the same. And then it goes into right after the intro, goes into the 60s Fleetwood Mac again. And you can go all the way up to page 169 and pretty much past that whole 60s era, unless you really want to read that. So starting at 169, the more modern history starts. Now, we'll tell you what's not in this book is one specific story regarding Lindsey Buckingham getting rough with Stevie Nicks. So the other reviewer described it as this book was less about drama. And he even makes an excerpt in there about he's so past all of that stuff. So if you want to read more of the drama that was in the band, you want to read the My Life and Adventures book. If you don't care about the drama and you want more of a sanitized history lesson, then this book is better for you. Now, I will caveat that by saying that the thing that this has, starting at page 273, it has more of the later history of the band, which really is mostly anecdotal because at that point they were just playing concerts. They weren't really releasing anything hit-worthy or notable in their catalog. They were already big and had their songs that they were going to play on. So I don't think you really gain that much by talking about how Christine McVie left and then came back to the fold. But that is in here. So if you wanted to go through that, you could, but it's really not that exciting, the wooing her back to the band and all that stuff. And then there's talk in here about his third or fourth, fifth, whatever wife it was. All of that personal history, if you're interested in it, there's more in this book, but it's more the same debacles he had in the first book where he can't keep married, basically is what it is. And this goes into great detail, just like the first book, his relationship with Stevie Nicks, and basically his marriage ended with the one lady because he wanted them both and he couldn't have both. So that is recounted again. And I swore a lot of this, it was like I was reading the first book. And I'm sure they changed the verbiage on some of this stuff, but like I said, the order of it was basically chronological, and it felt like I was just rereading the same book again. So from my perspective, if you were going to pick one of these two, I actually think My Life and Adventures is a better book, even though it doesn't include the later stuff, which I said before is like anecdotal, and you don't really need it because once Lindsey Buckingham left, that was pretty much the end of the group. Um, they came back for live shows and stuff, but you know, after those few albums without him, it was pretty much a done deal. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that it took two iterations to summarize what he felt like was his whole story. You could look at this book here as strictly a money grab, which he got my money twice. And I feel kind of stupid actually buying this one. So if you have read My Life and Adventures, I would not advise getting this. And if you've not read either one, I would advise reading the other one, My Life and Adventures. And for drummers out there, this is a drum channel. I've been reading drummers' books. There's not a heck of a lot in either one of them about drums. Although in the other book, My Life and Adventures, it seemed to be a little bit more detailed when he went to Africa and kind of played some tribal drums. This was more like, oh, I went there and I did that and blah, 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 blah. There was one little weird caveat where he was in a bar in Africa in the first book and had a Rolex, and he felt kind of guilty, and I think he gave it to someone. In this book, he claims that a Rolex was stolen, and then Christine McVie bought him a new one. And I don't know, because it was gifted, I think, originally from her. I don't know if he's talking about the same watch or not, but I was sitting there thinking, does he have his mind straight on that watch? Because I bet it's the same damn watch. Especially all the substances and things that they took, cocaine, and heroin, and drinking, and whatever else he did. He might not remember what happened with the watch, or he's got one of them correct and the other one wrong. I don't know. Maybe there's two Rolex watches. That was kind of weird. But yeah, in general, his relationships were a hot mess. The band relationships were a hot mess. And again, if you want to hear more about the group than the drummer per se, you're going to get that probably out of either one of these books, because it's not like a drummer book. It's a band book. And that was the same thing as the other one that I'd previously reviewed. So that's what I got out of these two. If you really want to dig in deep, you could read this second one, but I don't think it's necessary. Go with the old one.